This is an exhibition about the past, the relationships between historical facts. As a matter of fact, it relates the past, the present, and the future. It relates the ideas of great thinkers of the 19th century with the circumstances which eventually led to the outbreak of the First World War. I found a lot of inspiration in Rites of Spring, a book from Modris Ecksteins, which was published in 1989. This exhibition describes the thoughts crossing the minds of the trench soldiers, waiting in death fear for the next attack wave. It pictures humanity as it is and as it would like to be. Behind me are the names of 55,000 soldiers of the Commonwealth whose bodies were never found. And we are standing next to the wall where those 55,000 names are mentioned. They are carved into the sandstone of the Menin Gate. And I thought I must do something with it to make a painting. And what I did is I took a picture of the names and I took a picture of the cast iron lions here and the balustrade, and I integrated them. And at a certain moment there are names starting with an S. They are, as a matter of fact, in alphabetical order. And I put the name of Schopenhauer in between, because I think Schopenhauer had to tell something to the world which is very much related to that First World War. He said people do not have a free will. He said man can do what he wants, but he cannot will what he wants. Hello, my name is Guy Gruwier. I'm a Belgian watercolor painter, and I've set up an exhibition on the First World War. Now today we are here in Tynecott Cemetery, and I couldn't have done a better job than to choose Tynecott Cemetery as the background for my exhibition. Now, Tynecott Cemetery is one of the largest military cemeteries, British military cemeteries, where some 12,000 soldiers lay buried. And I must say it's a bit cold today, it's a bit windy here, but this is nothing compared to the circumstances that these young soldiers faced when they were waiting in the trenches during the war. The cemetery is like a giant hypersleep chamber, and I refer to it quoting a character in the movie 2001: A Space Odyssey from Stanley Kubrick. How does it feel to be in a hypersleep? And he answers, it's like being asleep. You have absolutely no sense of time. The only difference is that you don't dream. So, in my opinion, no much difference with the soldiers who lay buried here finally. Modest Ecksteins, he said something about the Rites of Spring, which was the first ballet coming from Russia being brought to Paris. And in essence, this girl represents this ballet because she is taking a pose typically for the ballet. And she's looking at the man, as a matter of fact, it's a dead soldier. And he is just floating in the air, as if his body is long gone, and this is the spirit that he sees, but he's still carrying the wounds of the mustard gas attack. So I'm confronting these two things because in essence that is what happened during the First World War, which was almost introduced by the Sacre du Printemps from Diaghilev, who brought this ballet from Russia to Paris in 1913. This is a picture taken at Tynecott Cemetery. Normally, in this memory stone, you would see the small cross here, at least small. It's a big cross, as a matter of fact. It's like a sword in the middle of it. And what I did is I replaced this by the monolith surrounded by the apes. If you take a look at Stanley Kubrick's Space Odyssey, you would immediately see that there's the way, at least the reference to which Stanley Kubrick wanted to refer to was, if people touch the stone, also the previous stages of people, which is meant as the apes here, they suddenly all become smart. And becoming smart in this case means that they found weapons to defeat the other party. And that's the way that I try to depict the relationship between this huge cemetery where all the soldiers lay buried and the process that humankind has been going through. Most of it, I think maybe 60–70% of the time, they didn't even fight. They were just sitting there in the trenches waiting for orders just to jump out the trenches and to attack the other party. And that's life specifically in these trenches. Soldiers waiting with their guns just on their knees, and somebody is telling to the other one, prepare yourself because we are going to attack. This is a scene which has been seen, I think, for most of the time being when the soldiers were fighting in these trenches. This is a close-up from those soldiers, just like somebody, the photographer was just behind the soldiers when he made this picture, and he really makes a part of that attack. At the same time, I'd like to draw the attention to the red spots that you can see, because these spots, they are referring to the poppies really growing into the fields. Specific to this painting is the interesting thing about it is that I like to put that stone again of Stanley Kubrick's black monolith, referring to this eternity element, which is perfectly fit for this picture, because also that Menin Gate is meant as a monument referring to the eternity. After all these names I just mentioned on the walls, the soldiers who died in the Battle of the Great War, and this is a symbol which is explicitly linked to one another. If you take a look at these two elements, I put them together and they are coming from totally different times. After all, the Passendale cheese did not exist really at that time, at least not in this explicit form. Passendale is a brand of cheese that is being manufactured still today by the same family. On the left-hand side, on the other hand, you see that tiny can which says pork and beans and tomato sauce. This is the typical trench food that soldiers got when they were in the trenches. Then I put these two next to one another with the thought which says choice is an illusion created between those with power and those without. As a matter of fact, the soldiers didn't have the choice. That's the only food that they could get. And today we still have a choice, at least that is what we think. When I'm referring to Schopenhauer, Schopenhauer says no, the free will is something which is created in the mind, the human being thinking that he is free, but he is not free. He thinks he has a choice, but he hasn't a choice.